They left in silence, and the galaxy forgot their power, until humanity returned to remind everyone why no one should ever underestimate them. The galaxy had always known the noise of humanity. For centuries, their ships moved across the stars, carrying trade, soldiers, scientists, and wanderers to every corner of space. Their stations were full of light, their colonies alive with voices, their fleets loud with radio chatter. Humans were not the oldest race nor the most advanced, but they were present everywhere. They made friends, they made enemies, but they always made themselves impossible to ignore. Then one cycle it all ended. The change was sudden, sharp, and no one saw it coming. At first, the silence seemed like a technical failure, perhaps a communications error or a regional blackout. Alien traders waiting in orbit of a human colony noticed no signal on their channels. They waited an hour, then a day, then several. No messages came. They sent landing craft down to the surface and found homes untouched, markets still open, machines still running, but not a single human anywhere. Plates of food sat unfinished, drinks half full, doors open as if someone had only stepped outside for a moment and forgotten to return. But no one returned. The traders spread the news, and soon others checked different colonies. The pattern repeated again and again. Vast cities stood in perfect order but completely empty. Farms continued to function with automated systems, but the workers were gone. In orbit, stations maintained basic power, but their crew quarters were silent and lifeless. Alien observers were unsettled. Humans had never shown signs of leaving. They argued, they built, they explored, they fought, but they did not vanish without reason. Now it was as if an entire species had stepped away all at once. There was no war, no cataclysm, no plague, just absence. In the halls of the Thalian Assembly, where dozens of alien governments gathered, diplomats shouted across chambers. Some believed the humans had been wiped out by an unknown enemy, perhaps something outside the galaxy. Others insisted humans had discovered a new frontier and gone there together, abandoning their old homes. A few even suggested it was a trick, that humans wanted to create fear and see how others reacted, but no evidence supported any theory. The silence continued. Ethan, an old diplomat who once worked with human envoys, sat quietly in his private chamber aboard the station above Nethros. He remembered conversations he had with human officials years earlier. They often said things in passing that now felt like warnings. A young human woman had once told him, with a smile, "We do not stay where we are not wanted forever." At the time, Ethan thought it was a simple remark about politics. Now he wondered if it was more serious. Did humans always plan to leave? If so, why did they not explain? Ships explored deeper into human territory. What they found unnerved everyone further. Entire fleets were still docked but unmanned. Some vessels drifted, power active but controls cold. Logbooks ended mid-sentence. Personal items remained untouched, as if crews had been alive and active one moment and gone the next. There were no bodies, no signs of violence, no damage. It was like humanity had been erased without a trace, but everything else remained. Laura, a xenologist from the Corlin Republic, walked through the empty streets of a human colony on the planet Arden. She had studied humans for decades and admired their creativity and stubbornness. Now she found herself stepping over children's toys still scattered on the ground, shops filled with clothes neatly folded, and schools with lessons frozen on their display screens. She recorded her findings and spoke softly into her recorder. Her voice trembled as she said, "They left everything behind, everything except themselves. Why?" The mystery spread like fire across the galaxy. Traders refused to travel near human space, afraid of some unseen danger. Governments sent fleets to investigate, but many ships returned in silence, their crews shaken by the emptiness they saw. Stories began to grow. Some whispered humans had discovered a way to ascend beyond physical form. Others feared humans had been taken by a power far stronger than anything known. A darker rumor claimed humans had left on purpose, leaving their creations behind as traps for those foolish enough to scavenge them. Weeks turned into months. The absence did not change. Human space was a graveyard of order without life, yet their machines continued to function as if mocking those who searched. Power grids remained stable, drones continued repairs, gardens were watered by systems, but no human walked the paths. The silence weighed heavier than war. Many realized they had underestimated what humanity meant to the galaxy. For so long they had been loud, sometimes reckless, often troublesome, but their presence created a kind of balance. Without them, neighbors argued, trade collapsed and pirates grew bold. The galaxy felt less alive. Jacob, a young starship captain from the Valise sector, traveled with his crew near an abandoned human station. They boarded cautiously, weapons ready, but found nothing living inside. He walked through control rooms where chairs were still pushed back as if crew had only stood up moments earlier. In the dining hall, trays of food were spoiled but untouched. He spoke to his first officer quietly. "I do not like this. They did not die. They did not flee. They just left. And that is worse." His words spread among his crew, who felt the same dread. The assembly tried to calm fears, but divisions grew. Some species wanted to seize human territories, arguing that humans had abandoned them and left valuable resources behind. Others warned it would be dangerous to claim what did not belong to them. What if humans returned? What if they were watching? Ethan sat in the chamber and thought of the look in human eyes whenever they were underestimated. He remembered countless meetings where humans remained silent while others argued, only to speak at the end with a decision that changed everything. Silence was not weakness. It was patience. On a distant moon, Laura discovered something unusual. In the archives of an abandoned colony, she found encrypted logs left behind deliberately. They were not technical manuals or trade records, but personal reflections. The last entry read, "This is our choice." The words were plain but terrifying. She sent her report to the assembly, but few believed her. Some accused her of fabricating it to create fear. Others considered it evidence that humanity had chosen to leave rather than being forced. If true, it meant they might return whenever they wanted. The uncertainty was worse than knowing. As the galaxy struggled with questions, smaller details began to disturb explorers further. Some defense platforms near human worlds were still active. When alien ships approached too close, automated turrets tracked them. Warnings in human languages played on repeat. "Do not enter." The weapons never fired, but the message was clear. Human technology was still functioning, still defending, even without humans present. It was as if the galaxy had been left inside a room, full of loaded weapons with no one holding them but the threat always ready. Jacob's crew found themselves chased by one such automated vessel when they attempted to take supplies from an abandoned freighter. The ship came alive without crew, its weapons powered, and it forced them to flee. Jacob later told others, "They left, but they left their guardians behind. They want us to know this is not ours." His warning spread quickly and discouraged looters. Still, some risked it, and more ships were lost to silent machines that enforced human absence. Months passed and still no sign of where humans had gone. Not a single living human was found anywhere. Yet the galaxy could not forget them. Their absence was too loud. In council halls, leaders argued more fiercely than ever, unable to find the stability humans once brought. In trade lanes, disputes escalated into skirmishes. Pirates spread like plague. Fear whispered that perhaps this was exactly what humans intended. Perhaps they wanted the galaxy to fall into chaos so that when they returned, their importance would be undeniable. Ethan often walked to the observation deck of his station and stared into human space. It was dark but filled with potential. He remembered the way human envoys looked at the stars, always searching for more. He wondered if somewhere far beyond they were watching him now, silently judging how the galaxy behaved in their absence. The thought unsettled him more than war. Silence was not emptiness. Silence was a choice, and humanity had chosen it. The silence of humans had stretched for many months, and the galaxy was beginning to break apart under the weight of it. Where once human merchants moved across the stars in great convoys bringing goods from one world to another, now entire trade networks collapsed. Alien economies that had relied on human transport found themselves cut off from supplies. Worlds that had depended on human-built systems now struggled as machines failed, without those who knew how to maintain them. The balance that had existed for generations was gone. Alien leaders met again and again in their assemblies trying to find a way forward, but every meeting ended in anger. Some demanded that human space should be divided and claimed before another power took it. Others argued that such a move would bring disaster if the humans ever returned. Every faction felt the strain. Rumors began to spread like smoke that pirates and warlords were taking over human stations and shipyards. Small governments sent fleets to secure what they could, but those fleets often vanished or returned destroyed. The abandoned machines left behind by humans were not helpless. They acted without hesitation against those who tried to take what was not theirs. Ethan, the aging diplomat who still remembered words spoken long ago by human envoys, listened to the debates but said little. He felt that every argument ignored one truth. The humans had not been pushed out. They had not been destroyed. They had chosen to go. That made the silence even more dangerous. In private, he told his assistant, "If a man leaves his home with anger in his heart, he will return to that home when he chooses. If a whole people do the same, then the galaxy itself will not escape their decision." His assistant asked him if he believed humans would come back. Ethan did not answer. His silence was heavier than words. On the distant colony of Arden, Laura the xenologist returned again to the archives she had found. She had spent weeks trying to decode the encrypted fragments humans had left behind. At last she managed to unlock one more section. It contained not warnings, but something stranger. It was a collection of personal notes written by several human families. They spoke of preparing to leave, but not of where they were going. Some lines read like instructions telling their children to stay brave, to remember who they were, to trust that silence was not the end, but the beginning. Laura sat alone in the empty library, her hands shaking as she read. She whispered, "They knew. They all knew. But why keep it secret from the rest of the galaxy?" The galaxy outside did not wait for answers. With humans gone, long-suppressed rivalries boiled to the surface. Empires that had once feared human intervention now turned their weapons against one another. In the sector of Veros, two alien fleets clashed over control of a human-built shipyard. Hundreds of ships fought above the abandoned structure. The battle raged for hours until automated human drones emerged from hidden hangars. They struck without warning, their weapons precise and deadly. Both fleets broke apart and fled. Neither side had expected the Silent Guardians to intervene, but they had. The word spread quickly. The humans had left, but their machines had not abandoned their duty. Jacob, the young captain who had once boarded an empty station, now patrolled the edges of human space under orders from his government. He was given the task of reporting movements of other powers. His crew was uneasy. They had seen enough to know that venturing too close meant danger. Still, Jacob could not stop thinking about the strange power humans had left behind. One night, standing alone on his bridge, he spoke softly to himself. "They left us their shadows, but shadows are never still. They move when the light changes. Perhaps they are waiting for us to fail, so they can step back into the light." Tensions rose higher across the galaxy. Trade disputes turned into raids. Raids grew into wars. Systems once united by commerce now bled each other for survival. Smaller civilizations cried out for stability, but no one answered. Many of them whispered that they missed the humans, even those who had hated them before. There had always been conflict with humans, but there had also been order. Now the order was gone. Some species regretted every insult, every betrayal, every attempt to manipulate humans. They realized too late that humanity had been the wall holding the tide back. Now the wall was gone and the flood had come. Claire, a historian from the Corian academies, began gathering every record of human history she could find. She traveled to abandoned colonies and copied cultural archives. She interviewed alien diplomats who had worked with human governments. She pieced together fragments of philosophy, songs, and speeches. The more she studied, the more she felt a pattern. Humans spoke often of silence, of patience, of leaving when unappreciated. In her notes she wrote, "They were warning us all along, but no one listened because no one believed they would ever truly go." Her work was dismissed by most officials, who considered it the ramblings of an obsessed scholar, but her words spread among the common people who began to believe that the humans had chosen to test the galaxy. On one world in the Nalari sector, children played a new game. They would sit in silence, pretending to be humans who had left, while others shouted and argued. At the end, the silent children would stand and declare they had been watching all along. What began as a game soon became a quiet fear among the adults who saw it. The idea that humans were out there unseen, watching the galaxy destroy itself, unsettled everyone. Silence had become the loudest voice in the galaxy. Jacob's patrol one day intercepted ghost transmissions coming from the edge of human space. They were faint, almost too weak to detect, but the codes were human. His communications officer struggled to decode them, and when fragments came through, they were chilling. One line repeated, "Not ready, not worthy, still fighting." Jacob ordered the recording saved. He played them over and over in his quarters, wondering if they were genuine or some cruel trick. If they were real, it meant humans were not only alive but still close enough to speak. Yet they refused to return. As months turned into a year, the galaxy fell deeper into unrest. Entire sectors became war zones. Others sealed themselves off in fear. Ethan grew older and frailer, but he still came to the assembly. His voice was weaker, but his words sharper. In one session, when leaders shouted about dividing human territories, he stood and said, "You speak like vultures, but you do not understand what you feast upon. Humans did not leave you gifts. They left you mirrors, and when they return, they will see what you became in their silence." His words silenced the chamber for a moment, but soon the arguments returned, louder than before. Still, his warning spread outside the chamber, and many began to fear that he was right. Laura continued her work in the archives of Arden. She grew more certain that humanity's disappearance was not random. She found evidence of coordinated departures, signs that humans had prepared for years. She discovered sealed hangars where entire ships were missing, as if they had all left at once. She could not find where they had gone, but she knew it was not death or defeat. It was something greater. She recorded her findings in calm but firm words, hoping someone would listen. Few did. Jacob's crew became restless. They asked why they risked their lives patrolling empty space. He had no answer, but deep inside he knew the truth. They were not patrolling emptiness. They were patrolling the edge of something immense, something waiting. Each time his ship passed a silent station or a drifting colony, he felt eyes upon him, eyes unseen but real. The galaxy had become a place of fear and suspicion. Every leader wondered if the humans would return. Every soldier wondered if the next battle would be watched by unseen eyes. Every merchant missed the old days when human ships filled the lanes with laughter and noise. Silence ruled now, and silence was unbearable. Humanity's exit had not only removed their presence, it had shattered the rhythm of the galaxy itself. And yet the worst fear was not that they were gone forever. The worst fear was that they were still near, waiting to decide what came next. The galaxy had grown used to the silence, but fear only deepened with each passing cycle. No answers had come, no humans had returned, and no explanation was given. Yet their machines and their works remained, standing as reminders that they were not truly gone. Every attempt to claim human worlds ended in failure, and the emptiness became a shadow over every council and every fleet. The silence was not fading with time, it was growing heavier, like a storm that never broke. Laura moved carefully through another abandoned colony, her small research ship hovering above the surface as she walked the quiet streets. She spoke softly into her recorder as if not to disturb the air. The building stood perfectly intact, the lights still glowing with stored power, the system still maintaining gardens and air. But she knew she was alone. She entered a school and saw screens frozen on lessons, chairs empty, notes still written by hands that had never returned. She sat down at a desk and whispered, "They left everything running so we would see it. They wanted us to know they could disappear without breaking the order of their worlds." She touched a small drawing left on a child's desk. The paper crumbled under her fingers, but the lines were clear. It was a drawing of stars and a ship flying beyond them. Her heart sank as she realized the child might have known where they were going, even if no alien ever did. In the great assemblies, leaders argued without pause. Entire sectors begged for help as trade collapsed, but no one could provide. Ethan, old and weary now, continued to speak when asked, though his voice trembled. He warned again and again that the humans had chosen to go and that they might be watching. Few listened, but many feared his words even if they mocked him. He recalled meetings decades earlier when humans spoke little, listened much, and then acted in ways no one predicted. He saw that same pattern in their silence now. They were not gone. They were simply silent until the moment they would act again. Jacob's ship passed near a large orbital platform left behind by humans. His sensors showed that the weapons were still powered, still tracking, though no crew was on board. His science officer reported that automated defenses had updated their systems only days earlier. Jacob stared at the readings and whispered, "Someone or something is still feeding them orders." His crew shifted nervously. No one wanted to suggest aloud that humans were controlling the defenses from wherever they had gone. But the thought hung in the air like smoke. Then strange events began to unfold. Fleets from rival powers clashed near human borders. But before their battles could end, ghost ships appeared. They were human in design but altered. They moved faster, struck harder, and then vanished before anyone could chase them. Survivors reported that they did not see any crew on board. The ships fought like machines, precise and unfeeling. But their presence raised a deeper fear. Were humans testing their old neighbors, sending machines to remind them of their absence? Or were the ships evidence of something darker, something humans had become beyond flesh. Claire, the historian who had gathered human cultural records, grew obsessed with old human philosophies. She read speeches where humans spoke about patience, about walking away from those who failed to see their worth. She studied ancient writings about silence as strength. She wrote in her notes, "They did not leave because they were weak. They left to show us what weakness truly is. It is not silence. It is dependence. And now we depend on the balance they once gave us." She spoke these thoughts at small gatherings, and though officials dismissed her, ordinary people began to listen. They began to fear that every move they made was being judged by absent eyes. On one forgotten world deep inside human space, a scavenger crew discovered something that shook them. They found a hidden chamber beneath a colony's central hub. Inside was a vast archive filled with recordings left behind. Many were encrypted, but some were clear. One voice, a human male, spoke directly to whoever found the message. "If you are listening, we are not gone. We are only silent. You never saw the weight we carried for you. Now you will. When the galaxy is ready, we will speak again." The crew fled in terror and spread the story. No proof was brought, but the words spread quickly across the stars. Soon entire sectors whispered of the human voice that promised return. Ethan heard the rumors and closed his eyes. He remembered a night long ago speaking with a human diplomat who smiled while others shouted. That man had said, "The day will come when we step away, and on that day you will know what we meant to you." Ethan had laughed then, thinking it arrogance. Now he knew it had been truth. Jacob's ship received another strange signal while patrolling the edge of human space. The signal was faint but repeated in human language. It said only, "Still not ready." The words chilled him and his crew. They wondered if the message was for them, for their government, or for the entire galaxy. Jacob saved the recording but refused to share it with officials, fearing what wars might start if they believed humans were sending judgments from the dark. Laura decoded more of the archives she had found. She realized that many colonies had prepared for departure in secret, creating ships built to vanish without trace. She found records of families writing farewell letters not to aliens but to their own children, telling them that one day they would return. Her hands shook as she read them, and she whispered, "They were not running away. They were moving forward." The thought terrified her even more because it meant they had a destination far beyond the stars that aliens knew. The galaxy began to see patterns. Human drones still activated near battles. Their automated ships still patrolled certain borders. And ghost transmissions still echoed faintly across the void. It was no longer possible to believe they were destroyed. It became clear to many that they had left by choice, and worse, that they were still near. This realization brought more fear than comfort. Leaders began to ask in secret councils, "If they are watching, what do they want from us?" But no one had the courage to answer. Claire stood before a hall of students and told them of her research. She spoke of human history, of their warnings hidden in culture, of their belief in silence as strength. She ended by saying, "They are not gone. They are measuring us. Every war we start, every world we burn, every lie we tell is being weighed by them. And when they return, we will see if we pass or fail their judgment." The hall was silent when she finished, and many left in fear. Across the galaxy, silence had become more than absence. It had become presence, a presence that haunted every decision, every word, every plan. Humans had left, but their shadow now loomed larger than their bodies ever had. And slowly, leaders began to realize the terrible truth. Silence was not the end. It was only the beginning. Whispers became storms. Everywhere in the galaxy, people spoke of humans as if they were ghosts. Some prayed for their return. Others dreaded it. Entire governments fell into chaos, arguing over how to prepare for something no one understood. Fleets grew restless as commanders refused to fight near human borders, fearing the silent machines that still awoke at random to defend empty worlds. Silence had become a weapon sharper than any blade, and it cut into the minds of everyone who lived under its shadow. Ethan, frail and old now, sat alone in his chambers, staring at the stars. His voice was weak, but his mind remained sharp. He recalled every meeting with human envoys. Every word they spoke softly while others shouted. He remembered a phrase repeated often, almost too often. "You will understand when it matters." At the time, it had seemed like arrogance. Now, looking at the chaos around him, he realized it had been truth. Humans had not disappeared in defeat. They had stepped away knowing that the galaxy would unravel without them. Jacob stood on the bridge of his ship when another strange event occurred. His sensors detected a massive object drifting in deep space far beyond known routes. It appeared to be a human vessel but larger than any he had seen before, vast enough to carry entire cities. As his crew moved closer, the object powered up. Energy surged, weapons armed, and then silence again. No shots were fired. No warnings were spoken. The ship simply turned and vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving Jacob frozen in place. His crew looked at him with pale faces. He gave no order to chase because he knew they could never catch it. Meanwhile, Laura pieced together more fragments from abandoned colonies. She uncovered records of hidden construction projects where humans built ships not for war but for departure. Entire populations had been trained in secret, prepared to leave the galaxy behind. The letters she found all spoke of the same vision, a journey beyond known space to a place they called only the horizon. Her voice shook as she recorded her findings. They were not retreating. They were advancing somewhere we cannot follow. The realization sent chills through her. If humans had left willingly, then they had also chosen what to leave behind, and that choice was deliberate. Claire spoke again before a growing audience of students and thinkers. This time her words were sharper, heavier. They left because they were tired of carrying us. They gave us power, stability, and balance, and we squandered it. Now we see the truth. We cannot stand without them. They are not gone. They are watching, and when they return, their silence will break like thunder. Her speeches spread across systems like fire. Ordinary people began to wonder if their leaders were making choices under the eyes of unseen humans. Some whispered that humanity's judgment had already begun. Then came the moment that shook the galaxy to its core. In a distant system, a war erupted between two rival fleets. Thousands of ships clashed, their weapons tearing the sky apart. But just as victory leaned toward one side, the battle froze. Every ship, every weapon, every engine simply stopped. Sensors showed an invisible force had locked them in place, and then across every channel a voice spoke. It was human. Calm, steady, terrifyingly clear. Not yet. Only 2 words, but enough to crush the courage of every warrior present. When control returned, both fleets scattered in terror, leaving the system abandoned. The recording spread instantly, and soon every being in the galaxy knew humans had spoken again. Jacob listened to that recording late at night, staring at the stars. His crew avoided speaking about it, but he could feel their thoughts. Humans were not gone. They were near, closer than anyone wanted to believe. His science officer whispered, "Captain, what if they never left at all? What if they only moved higher beyond what we can see?" Jacob had no answer. He only knew that if humans chose to step into the light again, no one could resist. Laura replayed the same recording over and over. The voice did not sound artificial. It was human, filled with quiet authority. It reminded her of the diplomat she had once met when she was young, a man who spoke with patience but whose eyes had carried storms. She whispered into her log, "They are not machines. They are here. Somewhere in the dark they are watching, waiting, and deciding when to move again." Ethan smiled faintly when the recording reached him. His health was failing, his hands trembled, but his eyes brightened. He whispered, "I told you. They were never gone. They were waiting for us to fall so we would understand." He died that night, but his last words were carried by those who knew him. Across many worlds, people repeated his phrase like a warning. They were never gone. Claire gathered her followers and declared that the galaxy stood in a trial. Every action was weighed by human silence. Every war, every alliance, every betrayal was being watched. Her followers grew into a movement, not of rebellion but of fear and reverence. They called themselves the Watchers, and they warned that when humans returned, only those who remembered their lessons would be spared. But deep in the councils, leaders plotted desperately. Some sought to prepare fleets to defend against a return. Others argued that no weapon could stand against what they had seen. A few whispered of surrender before a war even began. The greatest fear was not invasion but judgment. What if humans had left not to abandon the galaxy but to test it? And what if the galaxy had already failed? One night, Jacob's ship detected another faint signal. It was in human language again, broken and distorted. This time it said, "You are close to the edge. Choose wisely." The signal cut off, leaving his crew frozen. Jacob knew these words would never be trusted in council. They would say it was a trick, a false recording. But in his heart he knew it was real. And worse, he knew the galaxy was running out of time. Laura found another archive hidden deep beneath the colony's ruins. It contained a map, not of the known galaxy but of stars far beyond it. Her breath caught as she realized it was a chart of where the humans had gone. She stared at the endless points of light all marked with human symbols and felt a shiver run through her. They had not gone to one world. They had gone to thousands. They had expanded beyond reach, becoming something vast, something untouchable. She whispered, "They are no longer a people. They are becoming a force." And in the silence of the galaxy, fear grew heavier. Humans had spoken only a few words, but it was enough. Everyone now knew the truth. The silence was not empty. It was full of watching eyes, full of judgment, full of waiting. And one day, when the silence finally broke, the galaxy would learn the cost of being left behind. The galaxy had begun to feel smaller, tighter, as though the silence of humans pressed down on every star and world. Where once there had been noise, trade, and politics, now there was only tension and the quiet hum of machines left behind. Every civilization began to wonder not if, but when humanity would reappear. Their absence had reshaped alliances, destabilized governments, and filled hearts with fear and respect. No one spoke openly of hope, only of caution, and yet some could not help imagining the humans returning. Claire spent her days moving from system to system, sharing her research and interpreting the fragments of human culture she had collected. She had grown into a figure that some feared, some followed, and some ignored at their own risk. She told stories of humans as guardians, of how they had always moved between worlds, leaving their mark, guiding the galaxy even when it was unaware. They were never gone, she said repeatedly. They stepped away because they were disappointed. Their silence is a test, and we are the subjects. Many dismissed her words as fantasy, but in quiet moments, those who had witnessed human power felt unease. Jacob's ship patrolled the borders of known human space with more caution than ever. His crew whispered that they sometimes felt watched even when nothing appeared on their instruments. Strange readings suggested movement, sudden shifts in energy, fleeting anomalies that could not be explained. One evening, Jacob stood at the observation window, staring at the void beyond the stars. He thought of the vast human vessel he had once detected, and the ghost ships that had appeared and disappeared. He could feel the weight of the unknown pressing in. "They are not gone," he murmured to himself. "They never left. They are only waiting for the moment we fail." Laura had become obsessed with following the trails humans had left behind. She scoured the abandoned colonies, discovering hidden hangars, secret vaults, and automated systems that still operated on schedules set decades ago. In one hidden chamber, she found holographic messages stored for anyone who survived long enough to discover them. One projection flickered to life and showed a human scientist speaking calmly, her eyes steady. "We leave not because we cannot fight, but because the galaxy must learn. Every action has a consequence. Every silence carries a lesson. Observe and you will understand when the time comes." Laura shivered and recorded the message, realizing that humans had always thought ahead of everyone, always several steps beyond the understanding of others. Elsewhere, Ethan's warnings had become legend. Though he had died months earlier, his voice lived on through those who repeated his words. They were never gone. They were always watching, and when they return, the galaxy will know the weight of absence. Leaders tried to ignore the fear, but it had seeped into every decision. Fleets were moved more cautiously. Trade routes were patrolled, and diplomacy became hesitant. Even minor skirmishes were reconsidered because the unknown presence of humanity made each action feel dangerous. Then came the first clear sign that humans had not only been watching, but preparing. A massive energy pulse erupted from a distant system, a wave of light and force that bypassed known technology. Alien fleets scrambled, unable to determine the source, but the readings matched designs they recognized. Human designs, but unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Jacob's sensors detected automated vessels moving at impossible speeds, guarding the edge of a human-created construct that seemed to hover just outside known space. His crew stared at the instruments in disbelief. No one spoke. The realization sank in. Humanity had not only left, they had evolved into something beyond prediction, something untouchable. Claire analyzed the data from the pulse and compared it with human historical records. She found parallels between the calculated timing of departures, automated defenses, and philosophical teachings about silence and patience. "They were never hasty," she told her followers. "Every action, every step was part of a plan. Their absence is deliberate. Their return will be inevitable. The words spread like fire, unsettling even those who had once doubted her. In the quiet of her ship, Laura replayed more of the holographic messages. The humans spoke with calm authority, offering lessons about patience, observation, and consequence. One said, "The galaxy must first witness itself. Only then will it be ready for us." The idea terrified her. Humanity had given the galaxy a chance to prove its worth, and so far, it seemed to have failed. Wars had broken out, trade had collapsed, and fear had spread like disease. The test was ongoing, and the humans were still silent observers. Jacob's patrols became more dangerous as automated defenses activated with uncanny precision near every abandoned colony. Ships that approached too closely were forced to retreat by energy shields or targeted warnings. Some ships experienced communications failures as ghost signals from human frequencies overrode their controls. No one understood how humans could manage this from so far away, but fear spread quickly. Even the bravest captains hesitated to cross into territories they had once dominated. Humanity had turned absence into power. Then came rumors of the shadow vessels, enormous ships moving between the edges of explored space. Some claimed they were automated. Others whispered that humans still piloted them. No one could be sure. One fleet that attempted to investigate never returned, their transmissions cutting off mid-sentence. Witnesses spoke of ships appearing and disappearing like stars blinking, their energy signatures unlike anything recorded. Humanity's legacy had become not just a memory, but an active, living presence. Across the galaxy, citizens whispered tales of humans observing in silence. Traders spoke of sudden losses of goods, fleets retreated from sectors they once controlled, and entire governments began questioning every choice they had made since humanity's disappearance. Fear was not of war, but of judgment. It was a quiet, patient pressure, pressing against every mind, asking the question no one dared voice. Have we earned their return, or do we deserve their silence forever? Claire's followers grew in number, becoming a network of those who watched the skies and studied old records. They shared every anomaly, every pulse, every ghost signal, believing humanity was sending messages and warnings that had to be understood. Some began preparing quietly, imagining that the day of return could come at any moment. Some built shelters, some fleets, some libraries. All were ready, though none knew what to expect. Humanity's absence had created fear, but it had also inspired reverence and preparation. Jacob's crew detected another signal, this one faint but deliberate. It was human language, simple, calm, and clear. Observe closely. The balance must shift. No explanation followed, but the meaning was unmistakable. Every captain, every diplomat, every scientist understood that the humans were watching, judging, and waiting. Their absence had become their presence, and their presence would be unavoidable when the time came. Laura reviewed every record she had found in abandoned colonies. It became clear that humans had not just left. They had created layers of defense, messages, and observation that extended far beyond the reach of any civilization. Their absence had never been emptiness. It was a stage, a test, a quiet plan unfolding across the stars. She wrote in her log, "We are no longer dealing with a people. We are dealing with a force beyond comprehension, and yet we have nothing to oppose it because their strength is in patience." The galaxy trembled with this realization. Humanity had left, but in doing so they had reshaped the universe. Every power that had once plotted to expand now paused. Every fleet considered its actions carefully, and every leader remembered the stories of humans' unpredictability and intelligence. Silence had become a weapon, a shield, and a warning all at once. And somewhere far beyond known space, humans waited. Their eyes unseen, their purpose hidden, their judgment constant. The galaxy had been given time to fall into chaos, to prove itself unworthy, or perhaps to learn the cost of taking silence for weakness. Every observer, every witness, every whisper of the human presence grew into a quiet, mounting suspense that would shape the future for generations to come. The galaxy waited. Every system, every fleet, every leader felt the tension that had been growing for cycles. Trade had slowed to cautious steps. Fleets moved like shadows, and citizens whispered of the humans who had vanished yet never truly left. The silence that had haunted them for so long was no longer empty. It had weight, meaning, and an authority that none dared challenge. Rumors of human ghost ships, automated fleets, and hidden signals had spread to every corner. The time of judgment had come. Jacob's ship drifted at the edge of human space. His crew was tense, each person scanning the void for movement that might signal danger. Then, faint on the instruments, energy readings began to spike. The sensor grids flickered with interference that was not natural. Then across the darkness, a colossal silhouette appeared. The ship was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. It was vast, far larger than any station or warship, with glowing energy lines that traced across its hull, bending light in strange ways. Its presence alone made systems shiver. The vessel did not announce itself with weapons fire or threats. It simply appeared, massive and silent, and the instruments could barely track its movement. Every fleet nearby froze, unsure of whether to flee or fight. In the corridors of alien councils, leaders stared at the transmissions, pale and silent, realizing that the humans had returned not as the species they had once known, but as something far beyond. The galaxy had been playing on a stage set by humans, and the actors had only now realized it. Then came the message. Across every communication channel, every language, every frequency that could carry it, a single phrase repeated, calm, clear, and impossible to ignore. We left because we were taken for granted. We return only to remind you what balance means. There was no explanation, no warning beyond the words themselves. The silence before and after carried heavier weight than any armada. Every fleet, every city, every world understood the meaning. Humans had returned not as negotiators, not as traders, not as citizens of the galaxy, but as its rightful guardians, whatever form that might require. Laura stared at the readings, her hands trembling as she recorded everything. Every abandoned colony, every ghost fleet, every automated defense system made sense in a way it never had before. Humans had orchestrated everything with patience, with calm, and with purpose. The galaxy had been tested, and the humans had returned to show the result. She whispered to herself, they were never weak. They were watching, always watching, and now we see the consequences of our disregard. Claire's followers spread across worlds, relaying the message, explaining the significance of what had just happened. The humans were not seeking revenge in the traditional sense. They were here to restore order, to assert that the balance of the galaxy had always depended on their presence. Every leader who had scoffed, every warlord who had attacked human territories, every diplomat who had ignored their warnings, now understood the depth of the humans' absence. It had not been a retreat. It had been a statement. Jacob's crew watched the colossal human ship move through the void. Automated vessels and defenses flared to life around it, creating a protective sphere that no alien fleet dared approach. Every ship, no matter how advanced, seemed insignificant in comparison. Jacob felt the full weight of what humans had become. They were not just a species of flesh and blood. They had evolved, mastered technology, strategy, and patience to a level no other race could match. The galaxy had been left to stumble, and now the humans were here to correct it. Signals from human ships continued to spread across long-abandoned colonies. Ghost fleets emerged from hidden hangars, automated systems powered up, and communications relayed instructions that restored order to worlds that had been on the brink of chaos. Trade routes reopened under human guidance, conflicts halted without warning, and the galaxy began to feel the presence of humans not in words alone, but in action. Every alien civilization, no matter how proud or powerful, recognized that they had underestimated humans. They had been quiet, patient, and all the while far beyond their reach. Ethan's warnings, once ignored, now rang true across every system. His words had survived him, and the galaxy now understood. Humans had never been gone. They had stepped away to let others see what was lost, and now they returned to show that their silence was not weakness but power. The galaxy trembled, not with fear of destruction but with awe at the scale of humanity's vision and patience. Laura moved through one of the newly reactivated colonies. Automated systems hummed around her, and for the first time in years she saw humans again, not in her research archives, not in projections, but in ships approaching from the stars. Figures moved with purpose, calm and decisive. It was a reminder that humanity had never truly vanished. Their absence had reshaped everything, but their return was unstoppable. She recorded her observations, knowing that the history she had studied had now become living reality. Claire spoke to a crowd that gathered to witness the events unfolding. Her voice was steady, carrying over the sound of human vessels and the awestruck murmurs of alien observers. They have returned not because we asked, not because we pleaded, but because the galaxy needed to see itself through their absence. Balance is not given, it is earned, and now humanity is here to show the result of our choices. The audience stood silent, unable to reply, their minds heavy with understanding and fear. Jacob watched the largest human vessel align with the central hub of abandoned space stations. It moved with precision, energy flaring as it synchronized defenses, powered systems, and restored control to regions that had been lost to chaos. Every alien fleet, every struggling colony felt the shift. Humanity had returned to claim not territory but order. They had returned to remind the galaxy of what it had forgotten. That human presence was not just participation, it was the very measure of balance. As the colossal ship released smaller vessels into orbit, the scale of humanity's capability became clear. These were not weapons of war alone. They were tools of restoration, observation, and management. Automated fleets worked in tandem, following instructions without pause, creating networks that spanned systems. The galaxy had been left to fail, and now it was being rebuilt, guided by hands that had never truly let go. The first human ambassador to meet alien leaders stepped forward, not in arrogance, not in anger, but with calm authority. He spoke in dozens of languages simultaneously, the message clear and precise. We return to remind you that the galaxy is a balance. Every life, every action, every choice has weight. We left because we were taken for granted. Now we return so that the weight is remembered. There was no room for argument, no room for resistance. Silence had ended and humanity had returned, unmatched and undeniable. Every civilization in the galaxy felt it. For centuries, humans had been one of many, often underestimated, occasionally challenged. Their departure had seemed like abandonment, their absence a void. But now, every world understood that humans had never truly left. Their silence had been a message, and their return was a lesson. The galaxy trembled under the quiet authority of a species that had mastered patience, observation, and timing. And from this moment on, nothing would ever be the same. Jacob, Laura, Claire, and countless others watched in awe as humanity moved across the stars, restoring, observing, and reminding every being that balance was not given lightly. The galaxy had been tested, and now humanity returned not as conquerors but as reminders, teachers, and guardians. Silence had shattered the galaxy, but the return of humans would define its future forever.